Welcome to week 4, everybody. I hope that this has been a good first few weeks. I know the content is pretty dense, so I hope that you are still tracking with us. We have gotten through the historical backgrounds of social welfare policy. We have started to get into the conceptual foundations of social welfare policy. And now this chapter is about analyzing and researching social welfare policies. So let's get into this. I hope to keep this thing around 10 minutes. So we'll see how I do. I brought it down a little bit last week, so I'm very proud of myself. Let's get going. Chapter 4, Analyzing and Researching Social Welfare Policies. What is policy analysis? Policy analysis is investigation and inquiry into the causes and consequences of public policies. This is an absolute wormhole. You could get lost in trying to explain how we got to where we are, and there are so many theories and explanations for this process, and we will get into some of them. It is the study of public policies which reflect the social and political consensus of policymakers and voters. The development of social welfare policy. This chapter talks about underlying dynamics. What we have the policies that we have, but what's going on under the surface that got us here? Here's this idea of rationalism. I think that lots of folks, especially people in the policy world, or maybe somebody teaching a course on civics or policy like me, might be the voice that says this is a very rational process to form public policy. You know, it takes a rational course, and we get to the places that we want to go based on the things that we value and that sort of thing. I question how realistic that approach is, honestly. Here's the opposing view, is that public policy is really this thing that yes is based in the values that we have, but the machine is such a complicated thing that the only real way we get anywhere are these small incremental steps that really are, while our values are a piece of that, has a lot to do with a whole lot of other factors like context, windows of opportunity, even global factors that are sort of outside our control, economic effects and that sort of thing. So this is to me a more realistic look at how we really develop our policy, and it's these little steps that go in sort of general directions. And so sometimes we can look at it and say, this doesn't reflect where I am, what I believe, and where I wish we were. Sometimes we have to be realistic about how to get where we want to go. Sometimes it's just an incremental step. The idea of window of opportunity. Sometimes the time period where you are will limit or open up an opportunity. And sometimes if you're not thinking big picture, you may miss an opportunity. If you are a policymaker. The text dives into this. I really like this concept because you certainly see it. There was obviously the big example that this text goes back to a lot is the Great Depression. We had a cataclysmic economic event that while it destroyed a lot of things, it actually opened up this window where the entire population basically had a consensus. And so in those moments is the time to get your policies through. I hope that you're ready. And so that it's not only about timing. The text talks about three elements that must be present for to take advantage of a window of opportunity. One is a compelling public problem. A solution has to be ready, and there has to be political support. So we see that in the 1930s, these things came together, where you had a compelling public problem in the Depression. There was a solution made ready, and FDR was sort of the man that was a champion for that. So all those things came together, and then you had big time policy shifts in that window. This goes on to talk about dramatic events like the Great Depression or something like 9/11 that really in a moment this doesn't necessarily depend on these three elements that they talked about. Sometimes the event is so dramatic that the event in and of itself creates an opening for development and passage of public policies. When those two towers fell, it was time, and everybody agreed, and they created a whole new branch of government in a very short amount of time. Something like that could have taken decades to get to in an incremental sort of way, but an act of terrorism just hit fast forward on that. We see this in the political scene globally right now. Russia's invading Ukraine, and here's a good example. The Germans, who have had a sort of standoffish approach to defense and military, overnight, with consensus of all their politicians, doubled their defense spending with one stroke of a pen. All right, let's keep moving on. So we're still talking about some of the dynamics that are underneath the development of public policy. This is the implementation of policies. What develops as policy and what actually gets implemented as a program or service goes through a process. So though the policy really isn't the end, there's a lot of other controls and variables that have to sort of evolve before this thing actually hits the ground. So this is the term you'll find in the text: street level bureaucrats. So you may think you're powerless to these political figures that are writing all this policy and all this stuff, but there is a street level political power that exists in the hands of social workers and human service workers that should not be overlooked. The text always reminds us to make sure we're taking a critical analysis of social welfare policy. And when I say that this critical theory that is getting a lot of sort of controversial play these days is at the base of it, I think, a good exercise to never forget the power play. I think that's really what critical theory is trying to do, is to remind us there's a power play going on. One great part about this chapter is we do get a chance to sort of leave the heady kind of conceptual sort of talk and really gets into the steps of how policy is created, the rational steps, and that is a good chunk of our text here. It gets into Congress's legislative action, things like executive orders, and in the last couple of presidencies, we have seen executive orders take a bigger role in public policy that has been a problem to a lot of people. It seems that the our presidents have sort of found this loophole where they can do a lot of quick work with just executive orders. Of course, there's a whole judiciary that is making decisions. So all of this, some conclusionary thoughts. Policymaking does not necessarily follow a rational course, but it's greatly influenced by our values and our beliefs. How do we create social welfare policies that promote justice and respond to all of us with all of our beliefs? Well, the final sort of point here in the chapter is that really we should be informed. We should be tracking this stuff, because there are people at the top that are making moves and creating things that we then have to live with. So the best way to do this, and there are pages and pages and pages of resources at the back end of this chapter that I invite you to check out and follow. And with the internet, I mean, there's more and more that we can see. There's a list of resources here that you can access, federal stuff and state and local agencies. I have found myself more and more, especially in this information age where so much is coming at us, and so many of the news medias, so much of the news media is biased one way or another. It's very, very hard to find something that's right up the middle. And so we're always fearing misinformation and spin and all that stuff. So I will say, sort of my natural progression is that I've started to try to get more towards the source, where I've really gotten a lot more interested in watching actual representatives talk. And there are they post videos on YouTube, even just of Congress debates and talking to each other. It gives me a little comfort as I watch the actual players in the game. So, and not having to just feed off of the lens, the potentially biased opinion of some newsmaker. So I hope that this chapter has been fun to get through. I know it's pretty dense stuff, so but stay with it. We're just about halfway through, and I think you'll find, even if it's kind of dense and hard to slog through, that by the end of this class, you will feel differently and feel like you're more informed about the social welfare policy world. All right, I'm done. I think that was probably sort of long, but we'll see you next week.